Oops. Here it goes. Hello, hello, hello. How are you all today here? This was an impromptu event. Uh, just a moment. We got sound coming from the other audio. Get your supplies and I'll be right back. All righty, thank you so much. Oh, great. Now we have the battery saver on. Rats. I thought I had it plugged in. Well, just a moment. Find a leaf, and you may or may not have gotten a chance to download these two things. You don't need them, but they will be helpful. And I will link to those here in the chat box on StreamYard. And I will get my plug for my computer. Yes, I thought I had it plugged in today, and I obviously don't. Just a moment. Are we plugged in? There we go. Phew. Okay, thank you. Oh, good. I still have a few people. You haven't left me yet. So let me get out of some of these other pages. And so, yeah, I shared all those links with you. Tell me if you're in the chat box, if you've got some beautiful autumn colors around right now. I sure do. I was out this morning taking a walk with my coffee. Indispensable. Yeah. Let me get rid of those. So, yeah, it's such a beautiful day, and people were really enjoying my relaxation workshop the other day. So I thought I'd do it again. I've got the space here to do that. So let's see, where are we? Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate how to paint this leaf. It's a maple leaf. Now, today in our neighborhood, we've got lots of things in fall colors. We've got these beautiful oak leaves. And we've got quaking aspens, and we've got liquid amber. We've got maples, and the maples and oaks have all different colors on their leaves. We've got our state flower, our Oregon state flower, which is Oregon grape. And these leaves, these shiny leaves that look a lot like holly, will soon be turning colors just like these. So anyway, let me get all of these decorative leaves out of the way. Please say hello if you can. I love to know who's watching, where you're watching from. Oh, another really cool plant that is turning color right now are these Western larches. Now, this is an interesting plant. It's actually a conifer, related to pine trees, but it's deciduous. So it looks dead right here with all these yellow needles, but it's actually just losing its leaves, these needles, for the winter. So it's a very interesting, unique plant. It's the only one. I think maybe the only conifer that's deciduous. Anyway, we're not drawing that today. I just thought I'd share some of the things that are in my neighborhood. And again, if you can share in the comments what's turning colors in your neighborhood, and maybe you got a leaf to sketch or not, but I'll have a leaf here for us. So basically what I'm going to demonstrate is my quick, fun watercolor technique. And I am using the simple palette that I've used in the past. It's just some warm and cool primaries. So it's nice to keep things really simple. And I'm using my water brush, which is a brush that's filled with water, and it's great for working quickly in the field. And they actually come with different sizes of points, which is nice if you want to get some details. Now, if you wanted a little bit bigger palette, this is another palette that I use in the field. And in the outside, I put all the names of the colors so I won't forget. So anyway, that's another one, but we're going to keep it simple. I'm going to set that one aside. And if we wanted to, we might add a little pen to our painting, because the idea of today is to make a painting that you can use in a few different ways. One way is just to use for fun, just for practice, for right-brained playing with your watercolors. Another way you could make it is like I made here, where I painted the bottom half of a piece of watercolor paper that I folded in half, and that this can then be a greeting card. And you can also make these a little bit smaller and use these as name tags for your holiday meals, whether you celebrate Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's or something else, and you're having a lot of friends and family over and you want to seat people around the table in certain places to make sure the right people are talking to each other and the ones that don't care for each other aren't. So you can add a name in pen to this, and that could be a place mat name. Okay, anyway, so that's that. So that's my little demo that I did previously. Now I'm just using sort of medium weight watercolor paper, some leftover paper from, I had some sketches of some African antelope here for fun. But anyway, this is just a medium weight watercolor paper. And papers come in a lot of different weights. They also come in different textures. So a lot of watercolorists, especially those who do landscapes, like to have rough watercolor that has kind of some three-dimensional form to it, that the colors can then blend interestingly. But people that are more like botanical artists, like I am, like to have a flatter surface, what we call hot press. Now, this isn't quite hot press, but it's pretty flat. You can also use illustration board and multimedia paper that comes in sketchbook form as well. That's usually what I use when I'm sketching in the field. If you followed me for long, you know that I travel extensively and I teach internationally. And I just got back this summer from 2 months in Panama, where I was teaching both local kids and expat kids, as well as some classes at the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute. Anyway, so that's our materials. And then I'm going to start out with a light pencil sketch with a mechanical pencil. Okie dokie. Now, if you wanted to just cheat, if you had a leaf, you don't have to draw it by hand. You could just trace around it. So if you wanted to, you could just trace around it. But I am going to draw it for you, so we can draw it together for fun. And again, you might just be following along with this leaf or with one of your own. But the main thing I want you to remember when you're sketching leaves is that they're so diverse. Oops, I got some water here on me. Get rid of that. They're so diverse, even within the leaves on one tree. So you don't have to be so worried about getting things exact, okay? So that's another reason I'm doing these free workshops where just anybody of any skill level can join in and have fun. So basically, your leaf just needs to have a stem, and then we're going to draw some of the main veins that go into these points of the leaf. And then we're going to go around the edges. And, again, it can be pretty loose. You see leaves are really diverse in their size and shape and colors. It just depends how they look based on the amount of sun they get, the amount of water, and even among one plant, the sunny side of the tree can look different than the shady side, especially with these leaves. So we've got some mild weather the last few days, but some wintry weather might be coming next week. So I really wanted to sketch and paint some of these before we lost them. Here in Oregon, we have a pretty short season for sketching. I want to make sure I am plugged in. I guess I am. Okay, good. All righty. So anything else to start with? So it really helps if I know that you're here. So I know the other day I did have people saying hello in the chat box. So if you can do that, I would really love that. I'd love that. I can see a heart on the YouTube channel comments. So thank you very much. And I'm not sure about Facebook or StreamYard, but I'd love to know what species of leaf you might be sketching. And yeah, so this is what we're going to do. All righty. And again, you can follow along or just relax and watch. And I anticipate we'll go, let's see, it's about 10 minutes after the hour. The latest we'll go is about 45 minutes from now. Okay. But we'll see. I do have to run out of the house starting in 45 minutes. So that's why it's that short. Okay. So anyway, so here's our leaf. And again, the more you look at it beforehand, the better. Now, you don't need to see my face anymore. Let's make this larger. There we go. Okay. You know I'm here with you live. You know what I look like already. So let's get this going. I'm going to just have a little sip of my coffee. Okay. So here's our leaf. And I'm just going to draw life size. And again, it's always good to look at it before you get started. The more time you spend looking at something before you start, the more accurate your drawing will be. Now, this is a pretty flat image, so it's going to look pretty much the same to you as it does to me. So my drawing might be slightly different from yours because I'm looking at it from an angle sort of like this, where my eyes are, and you're looking at it from directly above, because my webcam is right above us right here. Okay. And so I first just do this stem and kind of continue it on to the end of the leaf, just to give me an idea of how big my whole painting is going to be. And just easy like that. And, you know, I can draw it about the same size. That's good. And then we've got these veins, these main veins coming out, and they come out to each point in this plant. And in oaks as well, same idea. You've got a stem that continues on to the end, and then these main veins that come to these where these points are on the leaf. And then there's a lot of different tinier veins too, but we won't add those yet. Maybe in the watercolor we will. Okay. And so I'm just going to start my leaf about here. And I'm just going to run these 5 lines. Well, we got the middle line, but these other lines here. So yeah, here's my stem. So we're just going to go out this way for this line and out this way for this vein. And then this vein goes out here. And then this one kind of goes out here. And this one kind of goes out here. So I see I'm already drawing a little bit bigger than my original, but that's fine because it'll give me more area to draw. Maybe I'll make the stem a little bit bigger. So yeah, these veins are a lot like the veins, you know, in our arms. You can see this, this blood vessel in my veins, in my arm. So these veins are bringing the nutrients through the leaf. All right. So now I'm just going to go around and lightly trace the edges and just again being very light. And we'll erase this afterwards. So we don't have to be that particular about getting the paint exactly inside. Um, because, like, for example, here is my finished version, and you can't really even see the pencil lines. I could erase those if I want, but anyway, they're very light. So I'm just going to start here and I'm just going to go around and sort of pretend I'm a little ant crawling along the edge of this leaf and getting basically these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lobes, and noticing that each lobe has some minor lobes here, and those lobes have little veins that go to those points as well. So I'm going to start here and just go around like this. Okie dokie. So I'm going to start here and I'm just going to keep my eye on this edge and just go really slowly and no erasing. Just having fun here. And again, leaves can come in lots of different shapes, so it doesn't really matter. And a little lobe and a lobe and a lobe and a little area there. And a little lobe and a lobe. And a lobe and a lobe. And there we go. That's fun. And then maybe I'll make this stem a little bit thicker now because it was just one line. And yeah, this won't matter too much because we're just going to cover it with paint. We see that this is a little bit wider right here because this end here, it's kind of U-shaped, this little thing, because this is where it sort of wraps around the main stem. All righty. Okay. Now, I didn't tell you to do this, but that's okay. I didn't do it with my last demo. But sometimes it's nice to tape down your paper so it doesn't start to wrinkle. And you don't push the tape down very hard. And sometimes it's nice if you actually have special low tack tape that won't stick too much to your paper. So anyway, I just did that really quick and dirty just to get it taped down to my little cardboard backing. And this cardboard, this is actually just the back of an old sketchbook, you know, how they have a little harder back to them. So it's nice to keep those in case you do, you know, decide to, you know, throw away an old sketchbook, because it's just nice to have those extra pieces. All righty. Now what are we going to do? Now we're going to start painting. And so we're going to make this really fun and easy. Here's my little demo. So again, we kind of want to think now about our colors. And the colors we have in here, there's some yellows. There's some kind of cool and warm yellows. And then there's some cool and warm reds. And this is a really basic palette of colors. You don't really need to know the names of these, but they're lemon yellow and new gamboge, and there's a cobalt teal, and there's a phthalo blue. We've got opera pink and alizarin crimson. But basically, any set of warm and cool primaries is good. Okay. And again, if you have any questions or you want to share this with anybody, click the share button. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you're following along. I would really love to have you participate. Okay. So then to get these watercolors ready to use, I use these little misters that are often used for filling with like essential oils or perfume. So I'm going to spray that just here to get those woken up a bit. Okay. And then I'm going to use my brush. So I have a couple sizes of brushes. If you don't have those, that's fine, whatever size you have. Generally, it's nice to start with a bigger brush so that you're not kind of like brush too much, that you can just get some big areas down. But I do have this really fun, very fine pointed brush here that's good for my veins. But it's amazing if you practice with a brush how thin and thick you can get lines if you're really gentle with how you push on the brush. All right. So I'm going to be just quick and dirty here. I don't want us to get too in the weeds. And so what I do first is I lay down the lightest colors, which is yellow, and then I'll wet in wet, dot in some warm orange, and then some cool red, and then this warm red. So where I'm eventually kind of like this. So again, my sample is here, and it's a bit lighter than that, but again, it doesn't really matter. These leaves change every single day depending on the overnight temperature, or if there's wind or water or sun or whatever. So again, we just want to have fun. All right. So I've pre-wet these, and now I'm going to, sorry, I was going to see if anybody was commenting on the other page. So I'm just going to squeeze this brush a bit. That's what's different about these brushes compared to regular brushes. If I take my box of regular brushes, here's one of my favorites. This is a very nice sable brush. You see, it doesn't matter how hard I hold it. I would be dipping it in water and then painting with it. This is a nice little box. I keep some of my best brushes in. So with these water brushes, you control the amount of water by how much you squeeze on the brush. So it's probably kind of hard for you to tell what I'm doing, but I'm going to make a pretty wet slurry of yellow here. And I'm just going to do it right in this container. You know, I don't try to be very fussy because I'm just, again, used to sketching in the field with a very small palette. Sometimes I'll have like this palette, which gives me a little bit of area to mix in. Well, I might as well do that so I don't get my colors too dirty. But I can just do it in here too. That's how I did the demo an hour ago. But anyway, so just to keep your paints clean, you know, I can just go like this, and I'm squeezing a bit. So I'm making this a pretty watery slurry. So I'm squeezing, and that's squeezing the water out. And I want to make enough that I think will cover this whole area. Because in general, you don't want to run out of paint and then have one area be a different shade than another one. All right. So, and since I'm right-handed, I generally start painting over here and go that way. And we're going to do it fairly quickly. This technique I call, or watercolors call wet in wet. So that means that I'm getting everything wet. And then I'm going to drop in some warm orange, and then some cool pinkish red, and then some warm red. And that's what I'm eventually going to get this, because you can see there's a lot of variation in this leaf. And if you look at, you know, again, other leaves, you know, they have lots of different variations. So You don't have to be worried about following anything exactly. You see, you can have more yellow and green in one place and more cool reds in another place. Doesn't matter. Okay. So I'm going to quickly start here and move across over here. And I can kind of have my brush pretty flat, and I want to go pretty quickly because I want this first part I'm painting to still be fairly wet when I'm done, so that I can go in with those other colors. But I up because it's a very high flock of robins out my window here, drinking, taking a bath, because it's a very nice day here in Oregon. I think it's going to be about 50 degrees. Again, not being too fussy. This is going to be all colored over. This base is just getting our very basic background color. And it doesn't matter if I really stay within these exact lines. These are just suggestions, because we can erase these lines and most of them won't show anyway. Once we start adding the reds and making this more of a kind of a overall, what do you call this? Like maybe a kind of an overall burnt sienna. You see, I'm just taking really big strokes. And I get really in my right brain. So it's harder to talk when I'm in my right brain. Okay, so this is still wet over here. It's kind of shiny. It's still wet. So I want to jump right in, and I want to start making a little pile of this new gamboge and make sure I have enough. And I'm going to go over what I just had. Okay. Okay, so I'm not trying to go everywhere. I'm just going to do wet and wet, kind of almost just dabbing this on. I definitely don't want to scrub, because I don't want to lift that first layer of yellow, especially since it's still wet. And you see, I'm not keeping exactly in the lines. And again, it doesn't really matter. Checking my phone to see if there's any comments on the YouTube channel, because I think I can't see those here inside of StreamYard. So we're painting, and again, we don't want to scrub too much. I keep getting a little bit more paint here, and Squeezing. Could use my tinier brush right there if I wanted to, but I don't want to get too fussy. This is a really good project to do with kids too, because it can just be fun and loose. It's not super exact, like you're trying to draw your pet cat or dog. And kids can get really frustrated if they're not getting something as perfect as they want. Whereas something like this, you can just do it really kind of messy, and as you're drawing and painting with them, you can describe and have the kids describe and observe the leaves, what they notice about them. And it's also good practice for just your basic use of a brush and paints without getting too worried about trying to match an exact color. So speaking of matching colors, I often have one of these viewfinder doodads here. And I just cut this out, a piece of paper here. And when I set this down, it's more easy to see that color. So obviously we're nowhere near that color, but we're getting there. And there are, cool and warm yellows that are peeking out of this deeper red. So next I'm going to get some of this cool, really beautiful. I just love this color. It's one of my favorite colors. Opera pink. And there's other names for it with other manufacturers. But so again, I'll just make a big pile of it. And yeah, please say hi if you can. I'm just looking again if there's any comments. So I didn't want this to dry too much. So I'm going to come back in here and kind of going flat. So I use a lot of my brush. I probably drank too much coffee this morning, so I'm not as steady as I could be. Oops, so see. But see how I got rid of that dot of paint. So watercolors are fixable. They're liftable if you get them right away. Even staining phthalo blue can lift. Again, I'm just dotting this on here, trying not to scrub because that's going to lift my other two colors and blend them too much. I'm trying to have these be fairly separate. Now, if I wanted them totally separate, I would be glazing one color over a first layer of dry color, but we're really doing what's called wet in wet here, so that there is a little bit of blending between those yellows. And don't these go so well together? This just reminds me of a beautiful tropical sunset too. This opera pink and the new gamboge. So a lot of people are afraid of watercolors because they think they're not fixable and they're so hard you can't really blend them or mix them very well. But this is just a great technique for playing with watercolors, just getting used to mixing them and putting them on, following the edge of the leaf to some extent. Now you see how shiny this is. You can probably see the shininess. Um, and so that means it's all still wet. But we're going to do one more layer to get this one closer to match. Because it is good practice to try to match a color you see in nature. So again, if I put my viewfinder here, comparing these two, this is still a quite warm orange. And what we have here is a cooler red, more like burnt sienna. So we are going to next use this cool alizarin crimson. And yeah, making a nice big pile of it so I don't have to spend time. Sorry, I keep looking out the window and seeing new birds because it's such a nice day. The birds are wanting to take baths in the feeder. I could even add a touch of this. Oh yeah, just a touch. See, that gets it closer to this. But since there's other layers here, it won't look exactly like that. Okay, so same thing. So this will pretty much be my last layer. But I'm trying to steady my brush. Trying to use the edge of the brush and pulling it down. Don't want too many puddles, which is going to wrinkle the paper. Although keeping it taped down like this till it's dry really helps. So much fun. Yeah, so if you see any shiny puddles, oops, why is my phone ringing? I thought the election was over. Oh, I got so many phone calls during the election season. So, yeah, so again, just pretty much trying to go over this just once, not scrubbing. See, we haven't done the stem yet, but that stem is pretty much a very dark alizarin crimson. We'll do that. We'll do that next. How's our time? 12:40. I do have to leave pretty soon. And watercolors look different once they're dry. They look paler. So you generally want to try to mix colors that look richer and darker than you think you need because they do have a slight color shift. All right. So we're going to let that dry a bit while we add the stem. And then we're going to add some just faint lines for the veins because, yeah, it has to be dry. Else if I put it on now, it would blend. So I'm going to switch to my other. I was just about to put this into my coffee cup. You have to be careful. This is my coffee cup. I'm not putting this in there. I'm putting it into my water cup. Okay, so anyway, this is my smaller brush. That'll make it easier to do this stem. And I want to make my paint a little thicker. I don't want to mess with this too many times because it is kind of challenging to do that line. So we're not going to do a bunch of layers. That would be kind of redundant. And I always keep little scratch pieces of paper so I can test and practice. And oh, that looks just about right. About right. And I just have one chance at this. One chance, and it gets thicker as it gets closer to the end where it's attached to the main one of the branches. Maybe I can get one more pass. Phew. Okay, does that look good? It actually also gets a little thicker here where it joins the leaf. Okay. All righty. So this is still pretty wet. Now, if I had a hair dryer, I could blow this, and that would help to not only flatten the paper, but also to dry it. You can also dry it by just kind of taking a scratch piece of paper or whatever and going like this. So I'll do that for a minute. Does anybody have any questions you want to put in the chat box? I'm going to look over here on the YouTube channel. No chats, but there is a heart. Thank you. Okay, so you can see it's still shiny. Well, it might be not as obvious to you as it is to me in real life, but it's still a bit shiny. So this is a fun exercise for not only practicing wet and wet techniques, but also practicing wet on dry, because we need to let this dry a bit before we add these main veins. And it would be easier if I dried it with a hair dryer, and that would make the paper get flatter. Then it would get easier for me to do these. But again, I like to practice doing things as if I'm in the field and just got to have one swing at it. So this is mostly dry enough. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretty much use this dark purplish red, the same one I did here, to do these veins. And again, notice that these veins all radiate from right here where the main stem comes in, and they come to these main 5 points of the maple leaf. And here you can see it's pretty obvious here on this beautiful oak leaf, although this is having this vein is lighter in color than the rest of the leaf, whereas this is darker in color. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to make a pile of that. And again, I'm using my smaller brush than I did before. And I want to pull away from myself like that. And then that's going to get that nice. And it's hard since I'm demonstrating, I can't really turn this, but if it was just me, I would be turning this so it was easier for me to do these lines, because it's kind of hard to like pull towards yourself like this. It's always easiest to go like this with your arm. So anyway, maybe I will do that because I'll just show you because it's all here. Okay, yeah, let's do this. Yes. So I'm gonna orient the paper so that I'm generally making this line with my hand, and trying to watch my that I'm not getting my wrist dirty here. Okay, that's not too bad. This takes some practice. So it's always good to practice on a scratch piece of paper first. So in my earlier video today, where I was announcing that today's event was going to happen, I did mention my Colorful Botanicals online course. And so if you want to learn more about that, you can watch that video. I don't have time to talk about it now, but it does include some other workshops that are related to the season. Let's see. Couple more things. Yeah. Yeah. So I think I'll make some of these minor veins. And they're a little bit lighter. Let's make them a little bit more subtle by just adding a little bit more of this pink compared to the blue. Okay. And so you see here that there's these smaller veins. And just the pattern is they sort of radiate out from the large ones, and they do come to these tips as well. So I'm just going to do that super lightly and not trying to be too exact. And yeah, these leaves, these little veins don't really come out exactly across from each other. But they do end up at these points. So yeah, anyway, my online course, I have a link to it here in the chat box, and I think I have a link somewhere else. But yeah, there's workshops on other seasonal things like decorative gourds and oak tree leaves, holly and mistletoe, and things related to Christmas. And then lots of cool tropical plants, because of course I've traveled a lot in the tropics, and those are fun for everybody to paint and draw, like orchids and lilies and bromeliads and succulents. Okay, and one more. Ta-da. Okay. How we doing here? Now, if I wanted to, I could add a cast shadow. You see how there is a subtle cast shadow here. And that's what I added in this one. You see it's super subtle, and it's kind of just a purplish gray. And that would help to lift it up off of the paper a little bit. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Um, so like I mentioned, my Colorful Botanicals course has workshops related to the upcoming season, including on drawing and painting decorative gourds, and drawing and painting mistletoe, because everybody likes to kiss under the mistletoe, and drawing and painting decorative hollies, and poinsettias. I can't find the sketch for that. And then the oak leaves I mentioned before. So there is a link to that in the chat box. There we go. Yeah, so there's a link to that in the chat box. That's my Colorful Botanicals course. It's an online course, a self-paced course, and it has workshops on over 20 different families of flowering plants. And in each workshop, I tell you about, where the plants live, how many members are in the family, kind of what their habitat is, and of course, their anatomy, or how to recognize them so that you can draw them more accurately. And like we drew this leaf. And so there are also workshops in the Colorful Botanicals course on getting to know leaves in particular and their unity and diversity, and also flowers and fruits and berries. And then, like I said, about 20 different workshops on various families of flowering plants, from succulents that live in the deserts to high alpine wildflowers and all of that. So there is a link here in StreamYard, and I think I'm going to add a link. I think there's a link in other places too, as well as at the bottom of your resources page. So don't forget, if you weren't able to get those before, you can go to my website at christinelder.com/painting autumn leaves. And again, I've linked to that several places. And you can download this high resolution image of leaves that give you a lot of different shapes and some different species and colors to play with, as well as my little cheat sheet for the steps in drawing a leaf. Okay, well, I don't see any messages. I think if you have any comments, you can leave those later on, and I can probably reply to those. So thanks a lot for joining me today. I do have to get going. I've got an appointment at 1:30, so I got to drive north. And so I hope you enjoyed this. And if you didn't follow along, I really hope you treat yourself one of these days, maybe this weekend, to doing this with some local leaves. And remember, you can do it on the bottom half of a folded piece of paper and make that into a greeting card, because people just love to get real greeting cards. We just, in this digital age and age of AI, and nobody does anything by hand anymore. So it's such a special gift. And it doesn't matter how your leaf turns out. It's about the thought that counts, right? And so thanks so much for joining me today. I do have to get going, but I'll see you around. And please do check out that link to my Colorful Botanicals course. There are a few free preview lessons, so you can get to know more about my teaching style and drawing and painting, and seeing if that's what you're interested in. So I am just offering that course for a short time. I do have over 20 online courses on a whole variety of different plants and animals around the world. But I only promote them sort of one at a time, well, while I can, related to different seasons. So, like I said, right now it's autumn leaf season. And so that's what we just did. So, anyway, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you around. Okay, ciao.